And a one, and a two, and a three. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, wherever you may be across the world. Welcome to the Orns pre-match live, coming to you live from San Francisco, California. Getting ready for Watford versus Birmingham City today at Vicarage Road. The international break is over. Oh gosh, that seemed like 3 weeks. I don't even know what happened. You go away and you're just like, what the hell? This is taking forever. And it is great to have you back. And it's great to be back here on Yuan's pre-match live. Delighted to have you with me, and it's great to be here. Watford take on Birmingham then in just under an hour's time. This is pre-match live. Welcome to it. We have just received the starting lineups. Watford have just released those on their social media channels. Watford taking on Birmingham. In goal, the captain, Daniel Backman. Jeremy Ngaki gets the start at right back. Nice to see that coming off the international. And then Ryan Andrews, that means he will be on the bench to start with this afternoon. And of course, Sierralta is back in the lineup as well. You've got Sierralta there. You've got Wesley Hoot there, of course, in that middle pairing alongside Ryan Porteous. I think had a very good international break. The game that he played for his national team, Scotland, against England, I thought he was very good in. And he's back in the lineup today to start for Watford at the Vic. And then at left back, Ken Sema is injured, and so he got injured during his international break for Sweden. And so it will be in his stead James Morris playing for the first time since the game against Stoke, where he did not do that well. And so he gets an opportunity now because of the injury for Ken Sema. And that is how things are looking at the back for Watford. In the middle, Imran Louza, TDB is back as usual. And of course, you've got the likes of up front, those players that you know so well. Tommins on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, it's going to be Matthias Martins. And in the middle, Rajovic gets the start, of course, the striker for Watford, making his home starting debut at Vicarage Road. That is a really good thing. Rajovic got 2 goals, of course, last time out against Coventry a couple of weeks ago, and they'll be hoping to do the same against another Midlands side in Birmingham City, who are flying high now in the early stages of this championship season. They're in 4th place at the moment in the early going. Watford in 18th after 5 games on 5 points. Watford have not won since the start of the season, if you can believe that. That's right. That was almost 6 weeks ago now. We were really buzzing about Watford after that 4-0 win against Queen's Park Rangers. But ever since then, it's been a bit of up and a bit of down for your Hornets. And let's hope the Golden Boys today can get back on track after really should have won the game. After really doing very well against Coventry, but they really should have won that game. 3 times they led by a goal, and then 3 times they got pegged back by the home side. Coventry, a very formidable side, especially at the CBS Arena, but Watford should have made more of that than they did. Let's hope that they build upon that, where they scored 3 times after not scoring since the opening day of the season. Let's hope that Watford get back the Golden Boys into the swing of things. The key today, I think, for Watford is going to be to obviously score first. They have to get going first here at home. Very important to score first. And I think once Watford score first, build on what you've got. Make sure that you build that mentality to keep fighting. That's what you want to see if you are a Watford fan of any kind of persuasion today. I certainly hope that Watford do get themselves on the good foot right now when we get this game going in just under an hour's time. You are watching Yuon's Extra on YouTube. That's right. Excuse me, Yuon's pre-match live on YouTube. And I do invite you to subscribe to this channel. Yuon's WFC would be lovely to have you aboard. So why don't you do that today? Thank you very much indeed to those of you who have. For those of you who have not, come on, what are you waiting for? It is this channel, Orns WFC, here on YouTube. Please subscribe, hit the like button, all the rest. And listen, there'll be lots of videos and thoughts and comments to come. Of course, there is the Orns 10-minute take that's coming, of course, after this game happens. And of course, on social media, on Twitter or X, if you want to call it that these days, that's what it really seems to be, isn't it? X. Then join me there on Spaces, X, on Spaces there, Orns WFC post match on Twitter at Orns WFC, and then of course we'll do another of these on Instagram as well, Orns Extra on Instagram Live. Those are going to be the places to look to join me today on what will be a very busy match day. Watford Football Club taking on Birmingham City Football Club, of course, Troy Deeney's boyhood club. As you know, Troy Deeney is from Birmingham, but Troy Deeney will not be in the building today, as far as I know. He now has taken on a position at Forest Green Rovers as a player manager or player coach there. And it will be very interesting to see how he fares. Troy Deeney with a new lease on life after playing with Birmingham for, I think, was it 2 seasons? He had some injuries along the last 2 seasons. He did score some goals, but really for him, he always wanted to live out that dream of playing for his boyhood club, and he did that. And now he's doing a bit of coaching and playing together. And I think ultimately Troy Deeney in this league, whichever league, because Forest Green Rovers are not in the championship, but whichever league it's going to be, Troy Deeney is going to be a manager someday. And that's something that I will look forward to. Leadership, and we'll see how that pans out. What do you think of the starting lineup, though? I mean, as we get back to this game, Watford versus Birmingham, which is coming up now in just over 45 minutes' time. What's the prognosis here? And by the way, Liverpool have just taken a 2-1 lead at Wolves in the Premier League as the Premier League returns. Andy Robinson, I believe, scoring the goal at Molineux to give Liverpool that 2-1 lead at the minute with just about the 85th minute of the game there now, as Liverpool have just taken the lead. But what do you think about this matchup, this lineup for Watford? I think it's a dynamic lineup. It's a lineup that I think will be a good one for Watford. Again, the options are what they are for this team. They're not really going to have a squad that's blessed with a lot of superstars on it, because that's not Watford, really. Watford are a workmanlike outfit. Watford are a kind of team that will scrap, and they will scrape, and they will fight, and they will do what is necessary to get the job done. And so, that's the thing you're going to look at when you're looking at Watford. We don't have that $1 billion player. We don't have a player like Cristiano. We don't have a player of those kinds of legends, if you will. We don't have that, but we do have people who care. I think the history of the club, at least, shows that superstars aren't our thing, but a superstar attitude is our thing. And I definitely look forward to a Watford side today that will graft, a Watford side today that will do all that is in its power to get this job done today. I am confident about Watford. I think that Watford today can do well. Birmingham City are coming in here, coming in pretty good. I mean, Birmingham again have had a very good start to their season under John Eustace. Of course, that would be a familiar name to you as a Watford fan, because he is a former Watford manager. A former Watford player. And he's somebody, of course, who I thought was very good at Watford, very influential, former Watford captain, as you might remember. Somebody, I think, who is going to, he set the standards, was a good leader at Watford when he was here back in his day, always carried himself with the kind of qualities and leadership that you can absolutely expect. And so for me, John Eustace is someone who sets a really good example. And he's obviously done that at Birmingham in the time that he's been there. He was there, of course, last season when Birmingham were playing Watford. Watford beat Birmingham, by the way, at the Vic in this corresponding fixture last season by a score of 3-0. It was such an odd game. That was a midweek game when Watford won, but it was such an odd game because Watford didn't play well, particularly in that game, and they happened to get 3 goals against the Birmingham side, who I thought were just unlucky on the night. If they had taken their chances in that game at the Vic, they would have come out winners. I am pretty darn confident about that, because I thought Watford were not very stellar in that game, but Watford were able to get away with it against a Birmingham side that weren't quite up to par, despite the fact that Birmingham, I thought, played very well. And look, Birmingham were just unfortunate not to get a chance go in for them. And that's really what it was boiling down to as far as that was concerned. Birmingham City have got good players, good solid players. They've got a good work ethic there. I think that they've surprised a few people so far this season, but they are a team that, look, they've had some good days back in the day in League Division One, of course, in the old Division One. Of course, they've had some good players. Tony Coton, of course, notably played for Birmingham in goal way back when. Of course, Tony Coton, a Watford legend as well, in goal. But, Watford and Birmingham had a number of clashes over the years. Remember, just last season as well, when we played them at their St. Andrew's ground, we managed to get a 1-1 draw there after Birmingham took the lead. Troy Deeney played that game. As far as I know, I think that's the only time Watford have played against Troy Deeney in his career. Troy Deeney, that was the season after I think he had left Watford. He had come to Birmingham to play the game there at St. Andrews, and he was involved against Watford. I remember that game from last season. And that was a game that Watford maintained their unbeaten start to the season in under you-know-who, Mr. Edwards, last season. Watford had a pretty decent start while not playing too well in some of those games. We've got the same thing, I think, here for Watford. Watford have not played that well in a number of the games so far this season in the Championship. But the only thing is that they are not at the top end of the table at the moment. I wouldn't get too carried away after 5 games about Watford being in the bottom 6. I really wouldn't. It's so early. You've only played 5 games of your season. I would say when we get to game number 15, let's start to look then at what the table looks like for Watford. And then I think it's a better basis upon which to evaluate Watford at that time. So look, 5 games in, you're not going to go crazy about Watford one way or the other. You've just, the season's just begun. They're just getting used to things. It's not the end of the planet. I know people look at the table. Liverpool have just taken a 3-1 lead now at Wolves. Harvey Elliott has scored for the Reds, and they are on their way to victory there at Molineux. But for Watford, I wouldn't get worried about this table position. Again, once we get to 15 games in, I think then you can start to really make a better evaluation of Watford. They're still coming to grips with this system. Brand new manager, a manager who has definitely set out his stall. He knows what he wants. The fans know what the manager wants, which is important as well. The players, I think, know what the manager wants. The players have to just put that together on the pitch. And what Watford have got to do today is cut out the silly mistakes. Watford have got to stop being naive in situations, and they've got to have better self-control and better discipline, which I think is what hurt Watford 2 weeks ago against Coventry. They did not have a good discipline about them in this game that they played against Coventry 2 weeks ago. And what Watford need now is to have a better sense of discipline about them. And Ian Foster, come on, you Orns, says Ian Foster. Ian, good to see you, man. I do hope that wherever you're enjoying the game from, Ian, I do hope that it is a Watford wonderland today, wherever you might be, whether you're going in there at the Vic today, or whether you are watching this from anywhere on the planet, whether it is overseas, whether it's at the local pub, or whether you're right there at Vicarage Road today. And Ian Foster continues and says, come on, you Orns. If we eradicate the mistakes, we will win. Yes, indeed, Ian. Agreed on that one. And indeed, they've got to cut out these silly mistakes. That's what cost Watford 2 weeks ago. And as Ian points out, if Watford just cut down these mistakes, there's no reason why they can't get 3 points here today. Look, I'm not taking Birmingham lightly. Birmingham are a difficult team. They're on a good start, so they've got a good buzz about them. You've got the former Watford captain, as I talked about, John Eustace, taking charge at Birmingham, and he's done that for the last couple of seasons at least now. They've got a good look about them, Birmingham, early on. But Watford have to game manage better. The keys to winning today will be better game management from Watford, and obviously a discipline from Watford, especially at the end of halves. when we get to the final couple of minutes, final 5 minutes of the first half, and the final few minutes of the second half, and the opening few minutes of the second half, we have got to be much more sound, both defensively and across the pitch. We have given away many goals, not many, because we only conceded 4 goals, I think, this season, something like that. But we've given up a load of goals, 5 goals this season. We've given up. We've given up 5 goals this season, and a number of those goals we've given up have been very close to the ends of halves or very close to the beginning of the second half. We've seen this against, I believe it was, might have been Blackburn, but we saw that against, if not Blackburn, it wasn't Blackburn. It was Coventry. We've given up goals against Coventry in that manner. We've given up goals against Stoke in that manner, very close to the start of the second half, and our heads dropped and we didn't know what to do. We've got to be switched on throughout these games, but particularly at the end of the first half and at the beginning of the second half, and obviously at the end of the match. We've got to be switched on. No silly free kick giveaways. I don't want to see Sierralta. I know he's the king of yellow cards. You've got to love him. But none of this nonsense with picking up yellow cards for free kicks. We cannot do that. You cannot afford to be doing that in these games. We've got to be better than that. Sierralta is somewhat a veteran now. He knows that, and he should know better. So let's cut out the mistakes. Ian Foster's on the train to the Vic. Well done, Ian. Get there safely, won't you? And make sure that you're there safe and enjoy the match. Enjoy the game, Ian. Good to know that you are on the train right now as I speak to the Vic to see your Golden Boys taking on the Blue Nose there, coming up in just over half an hour's time. Let me just read that lineup out again to you. And it does feature a couple of changes, and I didn't even mention the bench. Let me just mention the bench. One of the people on the bench is Mr. Jamal Lewis. It's good to see him. I thought he might start today because of Ken Sema's absence. But what happened was that James Morris gets to start today, which I'm a bit surprised at, because I thought James Morris was in the doghouse with Val after what I saw against Stoke. Not very good for Morris, but he's been given a reprieve. The international break, perhaps, and maybe some training has made Val change his mind. And now James Morris, who was not injured, by the way, as far as I know, over the last few weeks, is back starting at left back. But listen, one thing James Morris is going to look out for with Ken Sema out is Jamal Lewis. Jamal Lewis has not played a lick of football for Watford in the first team yet because he's had issues with his calves. He's had some injuries. But I can tell you that I keep saying Ryan, that Jamal Lewis, who was acquired by Watford during the summer in the transfer window, is on the bench today for the first time for Watford. So he makes his debut on the bench for the Hornets. That would be Jamal Lewis, the left back coming from Newcastle United. I'll be looking to see how he fares today, Mr. Jamal Lewis. I hope and I expect to see him in the game at some point, taking Morris's spot when that may be necessary during the course of the game. So that's the bench that I wanted to get to before I get back to the starting lineup. Also on the bench, Jake Livermore as well. Kone on the bench, as you would expect. Matty Pollock, who had a run out against Coventry, on the bench. Georgie is on the bench. Espria on the bench. Kayembe on the bench. And Ryan Andrews on the bench as well. Come on, you Orns, says Brown Electrons. Good to see you, Brown Electrons. Hope that you are enjoying this. And of course, hope that you enjoy the game today, wherever you may be watching the game from. I'll be watching it from here in California, here in San Francisco, watching Watford against Birmingham City. That's coming up in just over half an hour's time. I'll be here until the bottom of this hour. So that's another 4 minutes or so on this edition of Orns Pre-Match Live. It's always good to see you. Thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the Orns WFC YouTube channel, which is where you are watching this right now. And so if you've subscribed, thank you very much for doing so. If you haven't, come on then. What are you waiting for? Come on. We'd lovely to have you aboard. We'd be delighted for your subscription. And thank you very much for those of you who have done that. Now, let me just get back to this Watford bench today. And I read out the bench. Hamer in goal as well, by the way. Lewis, Livermore, Kone, Pollock, Georgie is in the mix. Espria, Kayembe, and Andrews. I like the bench. I like the energy of that bench. Espria, Georgie in particular, Ryan Andrews. I like that energy there. Kone gives you something sometimes. Kone has not had some good games lately, one or two games where he didn't really shine in. But Kone, I think, needs to be given more time when he can. But look, I like the starting lineup. No complaints there. Backman in goal, of course, is the captain. We did not get another goalkeeper in. We realistically don't have the funds to do that. Didn't have the really the strategics to do it because of all the things we know about the club and the money and all the other things and the market for goalkeepers and what Watford want and what the manager wants. The manager's really happy with this squad. Val is very happy with the squad. Now, some Watford fans may not be, but Val is very happy with the squad from the way it looks to me. Look, the bottom line is that you've got a squad that's very narrow. It's a very compact squad. It is thin. I know it's the truth. It's a thin squad with what Watford's resources are. We'll have to make do with this and see what happens. These lads are going to have to hunker down and cut out the mistakes, which I think they can. And if they do that today, I think that they can have a very good chance of getting 3 points on the board for the first time since the beginning of the season. That's right. It's been nearly 6 weeks now, almost 6 whole weeks since Watford won a game in the championship. I almost said the Champions League. But that is unbelievable to me. It's been almost 6 weeks since that win over QPR. Could have been a whole year ago now. But Watford are growing into themselves as a squad. We're beginning to see some of the things that Val wants, and therefore a building of identity. And so Watford have got to cut out mistakes today. Get on the scoreboard first, get that early lead, settle in, and start to dictate the game and cut out silly free kicks and silly cards. You do not need free kicks in areas of the pitch that can hurt you. Even where Sierralta committed that error 2 weeks ago, you've got to be switched on. And Watford were not in those situations. Game management is going to be critical today if Watford want 3 points against this very difficult Birmingham side. Backman in goal and Ngakia starting on your right back. And the left side, it's going to be, of course, James Morris making a start after a few weeks away from the start. And then, of course, in the middle, Hood and Porteous. We need some much more sound defense now. Our defense is going to have to be a whole lot better today if we're going to do anything against Birmingham City. And of course, you've got the likes of Loser and TDB in that midfield. Sierralta as well will be the defensive midfield option. And then, of course, going forward, you've got that forward line on the left side, Matthias Martins, and the middle, Rajovic, and of course, Tom Ince as well. I like the energy of that. Let's see how these lads do. It is the bottom of the hour, 2:30 p.m. in the United Kingdom, just half an hour away now from match day as the game gets underway. Well, it is match day, but the match itself kicks off in exactly half an hour's time at the Vic. Hopefully, Watford will get 3 points here today. Will be a very good game to watch, a very interesting game as well. Birmingham are going to definitely make life difficult, but Watford have to play their game and cut out the silly mistakes. I want to thank you very much indeed. That does it here for Orns on Pre-Match Live. Orns Pre-Match Live here on Orns WFC on YouTube. That does it. Omar here saying thank you very much indeed for your time, Watford fans. Let's get on the train to a win today, shall we? Look, let's get this job done. So important. Please join me after the game on Twitter at WFC for Orns Twitter Spaces, the Orns post-match right after this game as it goes. And then, of course, on Instagram at Orns WFC for Orns Extra on Instagram Live. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. Come on, Orns, and yeah.